We're about to stream live.
I want to make
The
sure that
Gillmor
somebody
gang.
other than Tina is seeing an indication of streaming.
Can we get
Yes.
confirmation on the stream?
I see it.
I see it.
All right.
Yeah, I see
Beautiful.
myself. There. I look pretty good.
I see it too.
You do.
All right, Steve, you're ready. We'll get going.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, it is off, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor gang. I'd like to make a brief announcement. Welcome to LinkedIn on the Gillmor Gang Network.
What? Wait a minute. You're breaking news?
hello,
You're on LinkedIn Live?
LinkedIn.
Just
Wow.
it came up on my watch that that's what's happening. And Siri wants to know if she can help me.
Hello, LinkedIn community.
That's
Shouldn't
pretty
we
cool.
be like, yeah, shouldn't we say more about that? You know, because
Oh, please be my guest.
well, apparently we're on LinkedIn Live, which, you know, people are just gonna get so tired of seeing me on LinkedIn Live. Ridiculous, but it is what it is, folks. It ain't my fault this time.
All right, so that guy is Brent Leary. Welcome, Brent.
I'm trying something new today. Actually, this is part of an ongoing thing. I have so many Rams hats that I've decided that for every live stream I do, I'm going to have put on a different Rams hat until I run out of different Rams hats to wear.
Okay, and what is the significance behind this particular yellow Rams hat?
Well, this is, well, I mean, I have multiple color combinations and logos. This is like the traditional very first Rams logo. So there's that, and it's a nice little color. I like it. So
It's got a pop of color going there.
yeah, a pop of color.
So
Well, what does number 47 mean on the hat?
Oh, that's just the brand. It's 47 brand. You know that site, they do all these athletic apparel kind of things, and so that's all.
Good.
They just branded themselves. Yeah.
joining us is Michael Markman. I don't know whether your audio is up yet or not, but say something, Michael.
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we
Good.
can hear you and see you.
Oh,
So
that is wonderful.
welcome to the gang, Michael. This is where you lock up again. Okay, terrific.
Well, at least he's got a nice smile on his face for us to
Yeah,
look at.
that's a good picture, actually.
Yeah, somebody screenshot that for him.
Yeah, screenshot that. The whole thing, all of us. We all look good. Everybody smile.
Also joining us is Frank Radis in New York. Welcome, Frank.
Hi, Steve. Hello, gangsters. How are you? I actually have a question for you, Steve. Are you broadcasting from a secret, somewhere secret out off the coast of South Carolina in a boat?
What part of that do you want to answer? Secret? I don't think it's secret.
No. Are you on a pirate ship?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. That's all I was looking for.
Oh,
And by now, you would have been able to put up a lower third. So there you go. That's it.
Very well done.
Thank
Joining us from Palo Alto is Keith Tier.
It's a wonderful pleasure to be here with all my Friday friends who I missed last week.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we all did. Sad, but true.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not doing anything here in New York. It was sad for me.
What does that mean? You're not doing anything in New York?
I'm just waiting for these contractors to finish their job so I can pack up and leave. It's not, the last thing I'm going to start doing is sit here and spend money. So I'm just not doing anything. That would have been a great thing for me to do,
Is it
show.
possible that your wife is paying them to stay longer?
God, I hope not. It's a distraction. This a good distraction. We should have done a GGX.
Yeah, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, there you go.
Thanks for joining. Let's see,
Michael will come in soon.
maybe.
Okay.
There is some doubt about whether or not he's going to be back at all on this occasion, but we'll find out. Joining us from Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant.
Howdy. It's good to be back after a week off. Miss you guys.
How did you spend your week off?
Well, I was fishing from a small rowboat off of Block Island, and the only thing I caught was this beard.
I like it. It's very hirsute.
So what part of what you just said is true?
The beard.
And lower third.
What a big-
Okay, great. And rounding up the current gang is the awesome, we already talked about him earlier, but it's Brent Leary. Just saying hi, Brent.
Really? Wow, that's.
Just checking to see whether you're listening or not.
I'm
Uh,
trying to watch us on Facebook and on LinkedIn Live at the same time.
How's that going for you?
It's kind of scary, but it's working.
But weirdly enough, not that it matters, but the Twitter live stream is not happening for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Keith, we'll have to investigate after the show.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not going to say what do you guys want to talk about because I've got a list of things that we're not going to talk about here. Okay, here's Michael. Let's see if we can bring him in. Okay.
How many topics are we canceling this week?
We don't do canceling here. We try, but it doesn't work.
Yes.
Okay, Michael.
Well, let me say goodbye this time in case it crashes again.
Hey,
Okay, well,
bye.
You
Ciao,
got
mein.
a lot going for you this time. The audio is in sync. You're still moving. Yeah, exactly. Keep doing that. And okay, so
And it isn't raining.
so very quickly.
It's not
welcome-
raining, but it's either overcast or smoky. I'm not sure which.
So welcome, Michael Markman. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And
for a
and
while.
why is that?
Oh, it's just a glorious Friday after a full week of strange news.
At the risk of actually talking about something, what do you mean, strange news?
Oh, the Arizona Michigas, the checks for people with children,
That's good.
the mysterious negotiations in the Senate, which nobody seems to be allowed to mention the F word in front of Joe Manchin, but there seems to be some kind of wink, wink communication.
The F word, as in
Filibuster.
Frankenbuster?
So-
Okay,
Is that
well-
like Millard Gillmor.
They speak in code. They all agree that something must be done, but they never say the F word in front of him.
I
It
don't.
sounds like he's going to go along with the Democrats, and that's not going to be something they're going to be talking about. He's going to make sure that that seems like, that's what I read this morning. Is that true?
What did you
That's
read?
my suspicion.
Yeah, that he's going to go along with the Democrats and they'll have the full, their full power behind, but they won't be talking about the filibuster.
Well, not to get into this too deeply, but my question is the better that they do with the Democrat-only bill, doesn't that undermine the bipartisan bill to the point where the whole deal's off?
I don't
I
know.
don't think so. I think they're two separate bills.
Yeah,
Apparently not. The Republicans who are in favor of the bipartisan bill, and there aren't too many of them, say no problem.
Hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, no Republican has come out and say, "Oh, deal breaker."
Yeah.
We can't go along with this anymore. They're all there. Everybody is just nodding along. So
I think that approach is just about neutered, given the collapse of the condo building in Florida and the cracks in the bridge over the Mississippi. I mean, they're not directly related, but they simply highlight the inadequacy of the maintenance of the nation's infrastructure over perhaps half a century. And so anybody who's trying to say it's too expensive or anything isn't going to have much credibility. So I think these guys are trying to kind of downplay it and maybe just get it over with.
So are there any, sorry,
We're
go
at-
ahead.
I would say we're at the point where people have to ask, what is the cost of not doing it? And it's clearly greater than the cost of doing it.
And it'll be more expensive the longer they wait anyway. I think they said they know that. So
Right. The problem is it's not just deferred maintenance, it's actually some new construction that needs to happen. And I don't know. I don't think there's enough money to do an awful lot of new construction, but it's the first step. It's a down payment. I think you can look at it like that.
who's
to me,
paying for
that
the
is-
Hyperloop? Is that something that Musk is paying for, or that company is paying for the Hyperloop, or is there some public involvement in that? In that project. Does anyone know?
It isn't really real yet, Frank. It's in the R&D phase, and investors
I thought it
have
was-
paid for it. There is some grants in particular cities to do the experimentation, but I don't think there's an actual project yet.
Ah,
But I
So
do think Dennis is right.
Isn't the technical issue behind this that if you dig a hole deep enough that you come out in China? Is that what is going on here?
right.
Or does it just before it gets to China, it comes back up?
It's a little
Where
bit
does
before
this
China.
come? Where does this come from?
They're not heading to China.
Well, the core of the planet is molten, and it would be very difficult to get through that. In fact, it would be very difficult to get very close to it because you'd melt.
Clearly, you did not see Journey to the Center of the Earth.
No, I avoided it.
Let's
That's
see. I
a
think
great movie.
that was written by Jules Verne's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the.
Yeah. That was actually before Lord Kelvin said the core of the Earth is
Yeah, that was such a great movie. That and the Time Machine. Those
Good one.
I love those
Yeah.
movies. Back in I
Yeah.
guess it was the early '60s, maybe.
The
Do you
land
think
that
some,
time forgot.
And don't forget Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Eh,
I've been trying
How
to.
could you forget that one? Jeez.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
favorite movie back
Always
then,
read.
though, of all time, and it still is The Thing, the original one. That scared the hell out of me.
For a brief moment, I thought we were going to be discussing some serious stuff, and now I realize it was a dream.
Well, look, hey, how about this new pandemic of people who haven't gotten the vaccination? It's scary here in New York, and from what I'm hearing, it's pretty scary in the UK too.
Actually, I have friends who are double vaxxed who've caught the Delta variant this week.
Wow.
So the double vax doesn't stop you getting it. You do get it, but it's in all cases that I'm aware of, it's been fairly mild, but you are not immune from getting it.
I think the idea is that the vaccine keeps you from dying and may keep you out of the hospital, which is good enough.
Yeah.
Mostly keeps you out of the hospital. So that works for me.
Yeah, me too. It's just astounding the large number of anti-vaxxers. I can't get over it. It's every single day when I get up in the morning.
What is it that's surprising about it, given that there's an entire political party that's
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
solve that
Well,
idea?
that surprises me too, though, Steve.
Why?
I don't know, just because I think logically, I think intelligently, I think stably, geniusly. Honest to God, man,
It's hard to
It is-
imagine that you have a political party that is dedicated to killing off its own voters.
damn right. And that's exactly the point. Hey, let's just wait around. It'll all be Democrats.
You know, you have Tucker Carlson trying to kill off his own audience. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think it's a subculture of Republicans, because I have quite a few Republican friends in Palo Alto who are, you know, went to Stanford or Harvard, who are all vaxxed. So it isn't really Republicans, as it's a subculture within the Republican Party, which is basically the QAnon, you know, conspiracy theory Republicans, which is probably about, I don't know, what percentage of Republicans do you think that is? Like 60%? It's definitely not 100%.
No, I don't think it's that. It may not be that much. I also wonder, in terms of the numbers, how much of it is in rural areas and parts of the country, which may not be, you know, which may not have large populations, but if there are a lot of them, that's a large population. And I wonder if that's also something that that might be skewing those numbers. But the point is that the numbers are high. And if you look at, actually deaths are going up in the UK. I see that all the time. I don't know what they are here in New York, but they're certainly talking about it. I watch the UK ones, and they're steadily going up, and it's really sad.
Yeah, everybody's numbers are going up, but so far from a small base.
Yeah.
But if you look at certain areas, I mean, the New York Times has some very informative maps that you can track by country and by state and even by county, and you can see where the vaccines are, you know, in the 30% range and the 40% range, and where the numbers are just curving up at a horrible slope.
So, Michael, let me ask you a question, Michael. Do you think that the logic of this situation is going to have any real impact, and how long will it be before there is some real impact about vaccinations?
Well,
or are we just going to be sitting here like Frank, you know, 6 months from now going, I don't understand it?
Well, by the way, let's not be too specific about that. I do understand that. It's just that it's hard to understand what I understand.
I'm not putting you down at all. I'm just saying that you're the representative of the mainstream media on the show, just by default, since.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
go ahead, Michael.
If you turn on any of the mainstream media, that's basically what they're saying. So this isn't about what you actually think or know. This is about at what point is this going to reverse itself, or is this going to have an impact on the midterms?
I think it will have an impact on the midterms, and I think it will reverse itself slowly. There's clearly the folks in the Biden administration are putting energy and ingenuity into solving this problem, and they will make some headway, but they're going against headwinds that are coming from Tucker Carlson and a lot of Republican electeds. So it's going to be tough. You remember, among the unvaccinated, there's always a spectrum in any population. So some are clearly ideologically conspiracy against vaccines and think it's some sort of evil plot. Others are simply hesitant, and others are just postponing. So I think you have to just tackle it by picking the lowest hanging fruit and then climbing up a little higher on the ladder to pick the next level of fruit.
Well, I have a different idea.
No, I mean, nothing is going to happen in a binary fashion where the switch is suddenly turned, but I think headway will be made.
I have a different idea. I'm not sure I agree that it can't be switched in a binary fashion, perhaps because of the numbers involved, that's the case. But it seems to me that Red State America is presenting as sort of a classic neurosis. And the more the therapist tries to disabuse the patient of the neurosis, the tighter they cling to it. What needs to happen is an epiphany, and nobody's set up to produce an epiphany that will literally give individuals an aha moment. There are ways to do it. I'm actually doing some research on it right now, but I do think that if this is going to change, it's going to change the blue state America. The people who are pushing the vaccines have to change tactics pretty dramatically.
I noticed that in the business community, there was a report yesterday about a number of companies that had, in the wake of January 6th, had basically promised that they would stay out of, supporting Congress people that supported the idea that the election was rigged. And that they're now coming back and contributing again to those candidates.
You mean like Toyota?
Yeah.
Well, I think Toyota went the
had a
other way.
reversal of their reversal. There was such a big outcry.
Well, yeah, Toyota said they weren't going to, and then they continued.
So, I mean, does that seem possibly relevant to the issue of the anti-vaxxers?
I don't know. I think you got to ask an anti-vaxxer. I think every anti-vaxxer is going to have a slightly different take.
No, but I'm talking about companies, basically supporting that or saying that they're not going to support something that is clearly not in the public's interest, and then reversing that decision based on business as usual. Do you see any kind of relationship there, Frank?
I think the business world is just as divided. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about companies that are requiring people to have a full regimen of vaccine before they walk in the door when they ask people to come back. So I hear almost as many stories about that as I do about anything else. So I think that business just reflects the rest of the electorate or of the people.
To me,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you could characterize this as stupidity, which it obviously is. But that said, it also is kind of radical libertarianism, which is a very popular ideology now, which is you can't trust the government with anything. It's kind of what underlies why the Republicans won 4 years ago in the first place, which is this whole anti-government, anti-authority. You can't trust them. I'm an individual. I'm not going to do what I'm told. That's the core of it. And it really isn't just stupidity. It is ideologically motivated stupidity. And I think that's what makes it dangerous. I doubt the midterms are going to be, fought one way or the other based on that. I think what Biden's doing with the infrastructure stuff is going to be a lot more telling in the midterms, I hope. The thing he did with this week with the German chancellor and the sense of patching back together a coherent world is going to be important, but none of that is going to stop ideological, libertarianism from growing, even on the left and the right, by the way. It's not just on the right. There's a kind of left libertarianism as well, which basically doesn't trust the government, for example, with Black Lives Matter and wants the police disbanded. So it feels as if the authority of the state is not respected. That's what's underlying it all.
But you could say just the opposite of what you said about 2016 and say that 2020 was about people saying, maybe government is good for something.
Yeah, I think we're having a counterexample. Part of the Biden agenda is to prove that point.
Yeah,
that government is good for something, and you're right. There are strands of thought that persist even when they aren't dominant. So the libertarians, which may be another synonym for stupid, the libertarians will persist, but I don't think they're growing. And I think the counterexamples that Biden is setting forth will be really persuasive.
I agree with that. That's
think
kind of what I
issue-
was
I think-
saying.
I
Oh,
think
no,
the
you
issue-
weren't saying that. You were saying that that was growing. And what Michael's saying is, I don't think so. And I agree with him.
No, I wasn't. What I was saying is, it's
Let's go to the tape.
on both the left and the right. There is strong strands of libertarianism, which is I trust myself more than the government. That's true. And what I'm agreeing with Michael on is Biden's agenda is to try to fix that.
Now, what I'm agreeing with Michael is that it's not growing, which you did.
Oh, it's definitely growing. It's definitely growing.
All right, so we've got a disconnect there.
Yeah.
I don't see the evidence that it's growing. I see the evidence that the news networks want to talk about it, but that doesn't mean that it's growing.
Well, what do you think Black Lives Matter is?
Well, maybe topping out. I mean, I think if we're at a tipping, I think we're at a tipping point. I think what you're seeing is pretty much the apotheosis of both sides. I don't think I agree with Steve. I don't think it's getting better. And then, as far as government is concerned, I think we had a great proof point this week that for over 60 years the government was able to keep Richard Branson out of space. So I think that was pretty good.
Well, Richard Branson and Musk represent this trend, not relying on NASA.
I what facility did Branson use to launch from, and who paid for that?
Yeah, but Michael, don't deny what's new about that. What's new about that is that they launched Branson, not themselves.
That was the spaceport, by the way. So I think that's his company's facility. I posted a shot of the spacecraft, and I put just one word on it: exciting. Right? Exciting. That's all I did. I didn't take a side. I didn't talk about. Man, I got so flamed by people who didn't want to talk about whether or not spaceflight is exciting. They wanted to talk about how bad it was that the billionaires were spending all their money to do this.
Yeah,
I would say 99% of the reactions that they kept getting angrier and angrier as they went up. And it's just one of my problems with two-way social media is I often want to jump in and say something. I have to hold myself back because I know it's just going to end up being a word salad, and it's just horrible.
Well, that's part of the same trend as well, which is the more pro-government you are, the more anti-business you are. And billionaires doing stuff like hyperloops and spaceships is not considered kosher, and antitrust becomes very popular. And so I think this, whether innovation is driven by capitalism or by government, your answer to that question, and the answer is obviously both, but the balance between the two does kind of define the period we're living through.
Well, but remember how railroads came to be and the coal industry came to be. It sounds like something Dennis would jump in on. Isn't that true, Dennis?
I'm having trouble understanding you. I can't really hear what you just said.
I was just saying that in reaction to what Keith was saying about about government and the billionaires and I was saying, well, weren't the railroads built by those capitalists, and wasn't the coal industry built by those capitalists back in those days? I'm not sure what's new about the way things are, other than the media can scream about it much louder. It's like, there isn't just one first group of papers. There's like 9,000 of them, or it has millions of them, and they're in everybody's face all the time. I said this last week, I'm really concerned about how the media is portraying what's going on in the world today. And even the media that you might think might not necessarily be misrepresenting what's going on, but focusing on specific things. I'm hearing too much about the other guy, for example, right now, way too much in the news about this. And I just like that to go away. And maybe it's just because I'm getting old.
No, I hear you. To answer your question with just one example, the federal government paid those capitalists handsomely to build the Transcontinental Railroad in both money per mile and land abutting the railroad tracks. what's more troubling to me is that the media appears to be picking sides, much like what you're saying, what Steve's saying. There was a big blow up in the media this week about batteries, as in very large batteries that could store huge amounts of electricity for in the future when we don't have coal-fired power plants or fossil fuel power plants to begin with. What seems to be very wrong about that is that it assumes, as most people do, that the only renewable energy that we can get is solar and wind, which is not true, and because of that, we need ways to store energy. Nobody's asking the question, how do you get stable baseload power from renewables? There are ways. They don't require batteries. I've written about it on my newsletter. But what's really sad is that the press, the media, has just blown through that as if it wasn't a possibility, it didn't exist. And they're all over batteries like a cheap suit.
And nuclear as well. They ignore nuclear, which is a huge innovation for energy.
Nuclear is ignorable.
Well,
But don't forget, wind
gonna-
farms kill birds.
I'm not going to get into. I think that was an invitation to a discussion which I will resist.
Well, let me. I don't want to pick a fight. I think nukes have enough problems, and there are enough other approaches to baseload power generation, such as geothermal, which is proving itself in the marketplace right now, that we could safely ignore nukes for the foreseeable future and ignore the problem of spent fuel rods that have a 30,000 year half-life.
I just had the wackiest idea, though, while you were talking there, Dennis, and that was harnessing the power of the energy created by the forest fires in the West. It just flashed while, you got to think outside the box, right?
You don't have like a document that says that you're an expert in this area, right?
I am not an expert in anything anymore, just in residence.
No, that's not true. There are many things. Can you explain to me this TikTok misinformation campaign that's going on audio only? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Well, it's on my list.
Was that in my newsletter? One of the stories I put in that I forgot about?
No,
already?
I don't. No, but what was in your newsletter was your comment on 25 years ago. You were there at the beginning of MSNBC, which is relevant to what we were talking about.
Big changes today. Interestingly enough, one of the best anchors there announced that she was leaving, which to me was a shock, and that's Casey Hunt. Yeah, I was. She's terrific. And is that what you heard? I hadn't heard that yet. Is that what we know?
It's going to CNN, supposedly.
Yeah, I saw a tweet to that effect. Someone said moving her to CNN is not a step up, and I replied, it is for CNN.
Exactly.
It's probably a good move. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on right now at CNN and at MSNBC. The one that isn't doing any moving right now is the one that's number one is Fox, and they're just maintaining their sort of status quo. And MSNBC just announced yesterday, the president of the network announced a whole big shift in the way things were done, and new shows that were being created, by the way, for the MSNBC streaming product. They had actually left out Casey Hunt's name in that list the day before. And it was this morning that she announced she was leaving. So I guess that was all something in the works.
Wow. Well, it seemed like they didn't know how to use her very effectively. She's got a young baby and they gave her a 4 a.m. slot. That's
Yeah,
dumb.
it's sad, but she's a very good reporter.
Well, she
Yeah.
also had a show on Sunday, East Coast time evening,
Right.
called, what was that called? But which was basically a combination of the best of all the Sunday shows with live interviews. And it was easily the best Sunday show on any network.
It
Yeah,
reminds me of
But
what happened.
it failed in terms of ratings.
It reminds me a bit, which Frank, you probably tracked this, which is the career of Soledad O'Brien.
Fabulous.
Uh,
The internet show that she did 25 years ago, which we launched,
Yeah.
was brilliant. She was, nobody else was doing it at the
Well,
time.
and then she left. Same with, who's that woman that was on CNBC, Maria Bartiromo. I mean, people make bad career decisions that take them from the center of gravity to the sidelines.
I don't think Maria's on the sidelines anymore. She's right smack dab in the
Fox.
middle of the Fox, of the Fox world. I mean, she may
steaming
be.
stinky pile.
Yes, it's funny. I worked with her at CNN back in the early 80s. So I've managed to be at MSNBC at the start and early on at CNN. So I have stories which I will not tell here.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. I'm
Fascinating
done.
too. So let me ask you, Frank. At the beginning of MSNBC, what did you think was going on there? And do you think that the promise of that alliance with Microsoft, clearly that petered out, but how do you think that MSNBC has played out? Forget about the ratings, war, because that's mostly Trump driven. But yeah.
I think the idea of what MSNBC was when its relationship with Microsoft was firmed up and it became MSNBC, which was a whole other story of humor. How you pronounce the word MSNBC. It's kind of like Misnevik. And it was an important thing. It was hindered by the fact that I think at that time, 25 years ago, I think the fastest modem you could get was like 24 baud or something absurd like that. So the idea of doing what MSNBC wanted to do, which was to be the connection between news and the internet, the first group to do that with Microsoft behind it, it didn't work. It couldn't work. But on the other hand, there were two groups at NBC News at the time. There was the NBC group that was on television. Then there was the MSNBC group that was living in Redmond, doing the internet side and creating, which I thought was one of the greatest early websites, was the MSNBC News website. It really started a whole trend, and it had a great guy running the editorial, a guy named Merrill Brown, who went on to become a great news leader in the business. And so all of that was good, but it failed miserably. But a few years later, obviously, they got rid of all those kinds of shows that they were producing, and they got into this talk radio thing that everybody else seems to be doing. Losing Microsoft, and now a new owner and a new president. And I think that they are actually doing better now because they have reached, I think, at least some of the promise that they said they were going to bring to the table. And it just took 25 years to do it.
So
I think that, in some respects, it was an idea whose time had not yet come.
Yeah.
The idea that you had to put the internet division in Redmond, apart from the news, the TV division, which was in New York, was a little crazy.
It was, and that created an awful lot of problems. I mean, not just communication problems, but there were these fiefdoms. It was clear that there was this group on one side that was MSN, and this group on the other side that was NBC, and they always didn't meet together. nicely. And so eventually when they put everything together into one big ball, it seemed to work better. And that's not too long ago.
So do you think
Part
that
of that, I
there's,
think, was part of that was the speed of the modems, but another part
Yeah.
of it was just the notion that the internet was such an exotic thing that you had to hire tech people to do it. And the tools which allow writers to post to the internet just hadn't come along yet.
Yeah.
So now there's an infrastructure which lets anybody in any news organization or from their own home to post to an internet news site, and that's
Yeah,
completely different.
yeah, and they had to create a way to do that themselves, which was part of what Microsoft did. So that was sort of the tech thing that they had to do. Aside from the fact that there was this whole office filled with journalists, none of whom really knew anything about what that connection was.
You also have to remember that MSN was born dead. I mean, that whole set of tools that were creating some kind of CompuServe-like special private place that everyone was going to pour into didn't work, and Microsoft had to abandon the whole thing, and all they really did was replace it with a search engine, which later became Bing, and that's what survived from MSN. You remember the MSN app that you had to download? So the whole set of assumptions underlying MSNBC on the internet side proved to be wrong.
Right. And it wasn't just the infrastructure that let writers and journalists post to the web. It was also the audience. The internet was an exotic thing for the audience back then. How do you get online? How do you do it? Nobody knew. You could get an AOL disk or an MSNBC, an MSN app, but to have a general persistent broadband internet connection, what was that in those days?
When we did the promos back then, I remember making sure that the sound of the dial-up modem was in the promo so that, there would be some comment about how, and you could get online.
So I can remember in those days, 95, I was the CTO at EasyNet, and we ran ISDN modem racks, and they were able to answer normal modems or ISDN modems. And EasyNet was situated inside Siberia Cafe, which was the first internet cafe. And we had an online service called Channel Siberia, which we launched at Internet World in London with Mick Jagger and Maurice Sarchi. And I was the guy on stage, and we had to totally fake the whole thing. So we filmed one of our team members doing what we're doing now in Zoom, but we only filmed one side of the conversation. So she was on screen and she said to me, who was live in the place, "Hey, that guy over there, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "What, you mean him?" And she said, "Yeah, I mean him." And we pre-canned the whole thing because you couldn't actually do interactive video. But
did it work? It sounds to me like something that would absolutely blow up in your face. But
no, it worked. It totally worked. It totally worked.
Okay, Brent, you're sort of at a similar place right now with streaming as what Keith and Frank are talking about 25 years ago. What are your thoughts about what you're doing and how that might relate? That was the question.
Okay. I was just checking my 221. I almost made it a whole hour without saying a thing, and you just had to go and ruin it. And
Well, I've been trying to for a while, but I can't get a word in edgewise.
I was really going for a record there, but no. I don't know. We're all doing this kind of stuff. I mean, it's really interesting. I'll tell you the thing that I think the most interesting thing I heard this week is what Twilio's did. Did anybody catch what Twilio's doing? They are
first of all, who's Twilio? I mean, I know, but explain, please.
So they're like a communications API platform for anybody who wants to build an app and have different channels of communication integrated into it. You can use their platform, their API platform, and it allows you to basically, add communication channels to your app, which is really cool. But what they announced this week was really interesting. They're announcing, I think they call it Twilio Lightning or something like that. Twilio, I don't know. It's a streaming platform. So they're going to allow you to use their platform to enable streaming services and even create streaming apps, which I think is really going to be interesting to see what people do once they don't have to be married or tethered to, the platforms that are currently available. They could create their own streaming platform and streaming applications. I think that's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that, because it's almost like, you give people, the tools and the necessary pieces, and now they'll be able to create their own things as opposed to just using, Zoom or Restream or whatever. I can't wait to see what happens with this, because now people's imaginations can go beyond just using these services to actually creating things with these services. And I think that's going to be really fun to watch what happens. I already signed up for the beta. I don't know when I'll get it or if I get it, but I can't wait to see what's available and what can be done with that kind of thing.
Well, there've been a bunch.
Because you don't have enough stuff going on right now.
Oh, he doesn't.
Well, maybe I'll just leave and create my own streaming app, and then I won't have to be on anything. I don't know. Of course, that makes no sense because that's where all the people are right now.
Yeah, you'll still be doing the same. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, create your own app and do the same thing.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what people do with it. Yeah.
How does it get monetized, and will people make money with it? Will there be a lot of will there be real professional stuff? I think there are. I've never heard of it. It sounds great. I'm going to go look it up.
And Brent, I've already got a name for you in the network. It's called BLT.
Excellent.
I already have the BBC, which is the Brent Broadcasting Channel. But
BLT. We call it BLT, Brent Leary TV. Perfect.
And then I'll NFT it, and there goes Dennis.
Oh, God. I had a conversation with somebody this weekend about NFTs and cryptocurrency, and he left yelling at me.
Was his last name Pombrant or?
No, I actually took Dennis's side.
I have not been to New York recently.
This guy said, "How could you think that way? What are you, 80?" I said, "Almost."
Hey, I resemble that.
So Keith, you posted something to the Telegram back channel about something related to Robinhood and what was the other company? Coinbase, and what's going on in terms of high-flying venture capital companies, Hey,
by the way, can I just cut in for just a quick second? Somebody is watching. Jerry Schumann is watching, and he says it's called Twilio Live. Thank you, Jerry.
Oh yeah, we know Jerry.
Jerry's
Jerry.
a news gang regular from
way back.
Back when there was no streaming.
He's watching on LinkedIn Live, by the way.
Nice.
That's great. So Keith, can you describe why you posted that and what you think the significance is it just the rich getting richer at the high end of the venture market, or is something else going on?
No, there's something more going on, which you could think of it as venture capital, which is kind of this artisan business led by people whose names you've heard of, like Mark Andreessen, is slowly transforming into what you could more think of as an index fund-like business. And you've got very deep-pocketed investors like SoftBank and Tiger Global, who are doing a very large number of deals in companies like Robinhood and Coinbase. The most recent one announced yesterday was Revolut, raised money from SoftBank and Tiger Global at a valuation of $33 billion. And what's happening is they're owning lots of shares in lots of successful companies. And the trend now is that they list. So SoftBank's a public company, you can buy its shares. And it takes on these kind of index fund-like characteristics, which is very different to normal venture capital.
Can you explain what index fund means?
An index fund is a holding fund that has lots of assets, and you can buy its shares. And by buying its shares, you end up owning a piece of everything it owns. It's like one step removed from buying directly. And obviously, to buy shares in Robinhood or Coinbase, you would have to be a qualified investor, which means a salary of 300K a year or a net worth of over $1 million. But if Robinhood buys these shares, and you can buy shares of Robinhood, then it gets around the qualified investor rule and lets the average person, buy a piece of the underlying assets. So I'm seeing, it's very early in this process, by the way, but there's a Norwegian fund called Kinnevik, which is worth 10 billion, that's done this for the whole Nordics region. And in the UK, Tim Draper's name is attached to a fund called Draper Esprit, which is also publicly listed and is like one of these index funds. And I think what we're going to see is that this kind of replaces the old style of doing things, which is, you give money to a well-known VC, they invest in stuff, and you, the rich person, is the only person who benefits from the wealth that gets created through that. I think that's changing.
Any other comments on that before I ask another question? Okay. There's been a lot of activity in the so-called social audio space in the last few days, particularly with Twitter getting out of their functionality that is related to stories on a different platform. Does anybody know anything about fleets and why it crashed and burned with Twitter, or is it just housekeeping as they try and do a bunch of things simultaneously?
Well, the name was terrible.
Yeah,
I think, the name is awful. I
Yeah,
know I just spoke, but I have an opinion if anyone else does.
It is the brand of an enema. I don't know why.
I was just going to say it's an enema.
It's an enema.
Fleet's enema. Everybody knows that, Steve.
no, not me.
Not you.
Maybe it's in my future, but
Well,
Oh, by the way, since we're taking time to be serious, Jerry says, jumping over to Telegram back channel now that I know it exists. Maybe we need to shout that out a little bit, huh?
T.me/Gillmor gang.
Okay.
and if you watch the show, the edited show on TechCrunch, there are lower thirds that give the information about that, as well as the Gillmor Gang newsletter, as well as the Gillmor Gang Twitter account.
Usually towards the end of the show.
And Keith and I have, over the last 6 months or so, sort of wired up a lot of these different channels to each other with varying degrees of success. But thanks for asking, and welcome. But the other things that seem to have changed as far as Twitter is concerned is they had something called voice tweets that they rolled out about a year ago, and they are now rounding that functionality off with automated captions, which I think is sort of I mean, who cares about voice tweets? I don't, but captions, I think it's a big deal.
Well, Dorsey in general is being incredibly creative right now. Yesterday, wearing his Square CEO hat, he announced a new developer platform that combines Tidal, the music catalog, high def, with the Cash App, with the Seller platform, which basically is with cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So basically, they're bringing together music and crypto and money and payments for developers to create new stuff on top of that music. So I
Now-
think in both
now
Twitter
we-
and Square, he's being incredibly creative and product driven, not revenue driven, which is kind of refreshing to me.
That now makes the purchase of the Jay-Z company make some sense. I didn't.
I wouldn't go that far, but go on.
Well, as much sense as him originally buying it when we all kind of went, what? You know, where is that on brand?
Yeah,
But
that much sense.
that anyway, it just seems to me that's an interesting play. I just don't think that Tidal has a lot of penetration, though. I could be wrong. It certainly didn't have a lot of penetration a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago when he bought it. And the idea of, I think we had this conversation, HD audio, you know, when you actually hear it, does it actually make a difference? And will you pay that money for that service? I think that was Brent that brought that up. There you go, Brent, threw it back your way.
That was Neil Young. Didn't he have that service about 5 years ago? That high definition audio thing.
Yes, he did.
Paying out. Yeah, and then I think Frank, you're right. Tidal, maybe now this combination, maybe makes singers want to sign up and have their stuff on Tidal if there's a nice way to monetize it a little bit more efficiently and without anybody dipping into their pockets as much.
What is
I think that probably happened, don't you, Brent?
what does everybody think about this so-called creator economy?
So I wrote my editorial about it.
Facebook
Yeah,
paying $1 billion?
except Keith, because we already know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, come in after. I want to hear
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to talk about the existence or lack of importance of the creator economy? I mean, there are a lot of people stepping into this. Facebook is committing $1 billion in payments to creators over the next period of time. I'm not sure what it is.
I see this as just another way to accelerate the few getting most of everything with everybody else getting scraps. I just, you're going to hear all these stories about all the folks, all the people that make it big, but they're going to be like an infinitesimal fraction of everybody else trying to do the same thing and not being able to do it. Because there's just so much attention that you can give. And the people who know how to use this stuff and put it to put a nice process together and find a way to really, you know, create a well-oiled process machine, they have the chance of being, you know, in that top echelon of creators that get most of the money. But everybody else is going to be there trying and spinning their wheels, because it's just not, it's just a continuation of what we've always had. It's just technology accelerates the race to the top for the very few and leaves like everybody else wanting to do that but can't.
Marketplace.
I agree largely. It's always a hits business. Everything has been a hits business since mass media evolved, and it is a funnel. Lots of people go in at the top, only a few people come out at the bottom, or it's an inverse funnel, I guess.
So my feeling is that
However,
the reason that all these, I'll let you finish your thought in a second.
Well, what I wanted to say is that one thing that's happening is that more money is going toward the creative economy, largely because of marketing pressure. They're discovering that the impact of influencers is much greater than the impact of advertising. Yeah. So there is money that's flowing out of mass media advertising and generic digital advertising into brand deals with creators.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a big trend going right now, that influencers, which, you know, have had their ups and downs in terms of, does it work as a way to extend your brand? You know, or are they actually just accumulating all these bots that give them all of this reach. It's gone
How
from.
come all the upfronts? How come all the upfronts? How come all the upfronts are generating record advertising dollars?
Well, I'll get to that. I want to talk about this one
Great.
thing, and that is that the influencers are back as part of this roller coaster, and they seem to be working. That's one thing. And you're right, Michael. That's something that's happening more and more right now, which will close down a lot of opportunities because the marketplace will determine where it wants to go to watch who, and that whatever their message is what will end up sticking. But the other thing is the networks have increased by a tremendous multiple. The advertising dollars that they can get in many cases based on the new streaming services that they're offering. So just because they did, NBC, for example, had a really big pop in its this year's upfront, based entirely on at least the additional money that came in that made them go over the numbers that they had in the past. Was the stream was Peacock, which apparently registered almost $1 billion in advertising. That's one brand new thing. And finally, the last thing I want to say is I heard a commercial for for streaming bundles. People were offering streaming bundles now and putting it out there as with that nomenclature. So get our streaming bundle, and that's HBO and Warner and all of the Warner properties.
I think you mentioned earlier, Keith, a couple of weeks ago, that one shift in streaming is going to be from subscription to advertising supported. So, as individual households run into the limits of how much they're willing to spend for paid premium streaming, they will take advertising supported streaming. And that's what Peacock is doing.
Yeah, and that's what's going up. Advertising fasts are on the rise. The whole advertiser supported television in the stream is making a huge move right now.
Right. So my comment would be that I think your thesis about influencers, being significant, I think that that's largely a marketing creation of the social networks trying to jockey for position as newsletters and social audio, is moving into I have to do this not because I want to, but because my competition is doing it. And I think that's driving a lot of the so-called influencers resurgence or surge. Whereas I think that the real surge is in plain old advertising mixing with streaming.
So
as you pointed out,
it feels to me as if you think of streaming as the common platform, there's really two separate things happening. The least controversial one is the move to streaming by major brands and everything that goes with that, which we talk about a lot. The creator stuff is almost like a separate thing. It reminds me a little bit when we moved from portals triggered by WordPress to blogs, and more of the content that we read was no longer on Yahoo News, but increasingly was on blogs. And that, 5 years or so gave rise to people like Michael Arrington as brands. It feels as if the creator stuff is going to create lots and lots of decentralized, real-time, probably interactive streaming. And out of that will come some names that we don't know today that will end up being well known. But it's not in competition with Peacock or HBO Max or Apple or any of that. It's a completely separate bottoms up trend. And there, I think the issue is going to be, just like it is with WordPress in that first generation, is discovery. What Steve always talks about, alerts and notifications being sufficiently targeted at you that you actually want to click on them and engage with stuff, that's going to become more and more important as there are people like us, doing stuff that an audience needs to find out about in order to engage with. So I think they are two separate things, and they're both important. My main point, though, is that second one is not, when they use the word creator economy, they're trying to say that lots of people are going to get rich, like Brent objected to. I agree with Brent on that. But if you think of the creator economy as the WordPresses, the Squarespaces, the Wixes of this new landscape, Twilio being one of them, then they are going to get rich because lots of people are going to use these tools to do stuff.
All right, we've got some people that have to drop away, including Brent. So I want to ask Dennis, do you have any things that are top of mind for you that we haven't gotten to yet, so that we can seed that into the conversation?
Actually, I'm glad we had this conversation about creators and stuff, because the article I read made me think that there was too much emphasis on infrastructure and not enough emphasis on where the content's going to come from. And if I'm reading it right, then how does this make money?
The content creators move over into a place that aggregates all the content creators, and then they create a monetization system that benefits everybody, but most of the people that get the most benefit will be the people on top.
Yeah, but how do you get on? How do you get on top? The creators, the content providers. There's a lot of them. It's very easy to create content. How do you winnow down the good ones from the not so good ones?
Yep.
That's the question.
Algorithmically driven. A lot of it is algorithmically driven. I mean, there used to be, and there still are in certain organizations, gatekeepers who have to green light your show. But in this world, small signals, micro signals, are picked up by the platforms, and the recommendations change on the fly. TikTok doesn't succeed so much by notifications as by showing you the next thing automatically, and they know enough about your interests from the way you've responded before to show you something that will probably keep you engaged. So there's a constant flow and fluctuation within these platforms that let people rise to prominence.
That explains why all I get on TikTok is cat videos.
If you like one, you're going to like another one. But at some point you say, I've had enough cat videos, and TikTok will notice that too.
Yeah. So immediately I start watching war movie scenes, and the next thing I know, that's all I'm getting.
Brent, I know you have to jump, so last thought.
Yeah, no, I just one of these creators is this dude named Logan Paul. You guys ever heard of this guy?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Logan and Jake.
That's what I'm saying. These guys, parlay this social stuff into literally a fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. I mean, an actual, pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters of all time. This dude parlayed using social media to build a millions of people a following, to be able to kind of guarantee, if I fight Floyd Mayweather, I'll be able to get you X amount of millions of dollars. And it happened. This stuff is serious, but once again, it's just one or two guys. Everybody else is going to see that and going to, oh, well, if he can do it, I why can't I? And
sounds like NFTs.
I think a lot of this is going to be, the have and the have-nots, the very few haves versus all the rest of us, for the most part, because only a handful of people are able to actually pull something like that off.
But it's just a story of trends and bell curves.
There's only a handful of people who will get six-figure incomes out of this.
Exactly.
There are only
everybody else is trying.
It's the same as
a small fraction of those will get seven-figure incomes out of this. But there are a lot of people who can live on it at lower levels.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's gonna be levels to this. I gotta go, guys, but let me just take a quick shout out to Jerry, because Jerry has given us a lot of great comments, and he's over at LinkedIn. So thanks, Jerry. Thanks, gang. I will see you guys.
Have a good weekend, Brent.
Chow mein.
You
Thank you,
too.
Brent.
Thanks, Brent. I want to push back a little bit on the notion that there's some sort of competition between algorithms and notifications. I think they're part of a larger trend.
Well,
Not,
notifications are
not,
also,
not in opposition to each other. That's
No, they-
what I wanted to push back on.
okay,
The-
and I won't agree with you. Notifications are also driven by algorithms.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that some of these platforms don't rely solely on notifications.
Oh,
They-
I'm not disagreeing with.
They work like the old TV networks. If you ended on the Tonight Show, you woke up to the Today Show,
Yeah.
and they just assume that if you're on that station when you go to sleep, you'll be on that station when you wake up. And local news feeds into the nightly news, and the nightly news feeds into prime time. And they were
So I want to throw one other.
Hold on, Michael, it sounds like you went to every research meeting that I went to every single day for the entire 20 years I spent at
No,
NBC.
you didn't have to go to the research meetings.
They
Yeah.
still had to say it.
So I want to throw in one other development this week, which was Clubhouse creating what they in fact call back channel, which is a direct message back channel, so that people within those Clubhouse rooms can talk to each other and manage the information going to the hosts about what they might want to say, what questions they have to ask. I think that data is, to Michael's point, I think that data is going to become a very significant part of the algorithm of authority and reputation that's going to flow out of these long tail users.
How much different is that from what you already have here on the Gillmor Gang with our own back channel?
Well, it's not. Basically, it's a competitive response to the fact that Twitter has rolled out Spaces and has indicated that their network is somehow better prepared for this social audio experience. I thought that was
It's also
not
just
true.
capturing conversations that were already happening. So people were already using direct messaging over Twitter to manage Clubhouse rooms, and they were using text messages to manage them. It was a functionality that people were inventing for themselves, so the platform just added it.
And now I think the thing that struck me interesting there was that now that the platform has this text, it can use that text in its research gathering to help it determine point A, point B, point C. It becomes part of the algorithm.
Exactly. That's I think an important development. And just, frankly, I think it's a super important development for Clubhouse, because they've weathered the fact that nobody cares, and now that Android people are discovering that nobody cares, so they have to come up with something that's going to bolster this middle of the road, smaller targeted audiences that Keith was talking about, where the value proposition for people in the creator economy becomes more apparent. So I think it's a big deal. Any other comment?
It's a big deal and a little deal, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Micro communities, I think, was mentioned earlier by somebody, and I think that's exactly right. I think it was Keith, Dennis, who said that.
I've largely lost interest in Clubhouse. This is maybe not be a significant data point, but I'm no longer fascinated.
Well, you went through the becoming a Clubhouser, and then I don't know. I mean, my biggest problem with any of these services is I already know what I think, so I don't really want to listen to me.
Well, the thing is, I sometimes found myself in rooms where I was learning something or getting points of view that hadn't occurred to me. but usually I was listening to very frustrating conversations that led nowhere.
Sounds like mainstream media.
Sounds like the Gilmore Gang.
I don't know. I have to say,
Now you're going in the wrong direction.
I actually think today's show has been really very interesting. It's
Luckily.
gone in a lot of you navigated it, Steve. I thought that was great. I think the different topics that we talked about, all of which seem germane, or Michael, to the conversation and the remit of what the Gilmore Gang is. Look at you even
All
wrote
about
stuff
the
down.
list.
I mean, I think lists are very important. But I actually enjoyed today's show because of the cornucopia of things that we talked about.
Yes, I would like to thank Steve for whatever innovations he made in his moderating game. I
Well,
think it was very helpful.
Believe me,
And I don't want to say
surrender
too much,
that
'cause-
goal. I'm going to surrender that honor to you, Michael. You're going to be the moderator on the next one.
I think you should make an NFT out of that list. What do you think, Dennis?
I think it's going to be an NFW.
Yeah, right.
Do anything you want. It's a free country.
Yeah, there you go.
It is?
Yeah, that's what she said.
I don't know what W stands for in an American brain, but in a British brain, there's only one word that comes to mind, and it doesn't fit. So,
Well,
No.
that's not the word. The key word is the W is for way.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's the F that gets
First
it.
one is for no, is N for
No.
no, and the F is for
Frank, no Frank way.
no Franken way.
No
That's
Franken way. Good show,
Okay.
guys. Yeah.
All right, last.
In other words,
thought. We're gonna wind this-
NFW is NSFW.
There you go. Not even interesting for work. Dennis, last thoughts.
Oh, last thoughts. I'm still having fun watching Joe Biden's strategery rolling out. I think the Republicans don't know what to do with him, and it's pretty to see.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
He's got this amazing knack for absorbing policy from the left and presenting it as though it's no big deal, so that the moderates go along with it.
It's kind of a modern rope-a-dope tech campaign.
Somewhat.
In a way,
Yeah, he absorbs the blows, and then when the well,
but what will be important is over the next year, how well they market what he's accomplished.
well, he also has to accomplish it. In other words, go beyond the strategy to the policy being enacted.
Well, anybody with young children who gets $300 in their bank account or mailbox per child from now on till the next election will notice something.
Well, I think that's exactly right, Michael. And that's when you were talking about that earlier, it struck me that, you know, the no matter what, there will be $300 some a month going to, or more, depending on the number of children that you have and the ages of them, going to just gigantic numbers of people across the country. People will see it. They will notice it. If the infrastructure bill gets through, the bipartisan one, stuff will eventually get built. If
okay. On the way out the door, a snap poll. Who believes that there will be a carve out for voting rights? Carve out for the filibuster. One.
I don't understand the question enough.
A carve out as opposed to not changing the filibuster rules in any way, but very specifically adopting a vote that defines the issues of voting rights as being relevant to a 50 vote majority.
Simple majority.
Simple majority.
In other words,
Yeah.
instead of killing the filibuster outright, say it doesn't apply in this case.
Okay.
Right. They pretty much did that. Harry Reid did that in 2013 for federal judges. And Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably.
but Harry Reid had a majority in both the House and the Senate of what, 7 or 8 votes in the Senate.
Yeah, but I think Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are going to have to be able to live with it. And I think they will live with it because they'll be able to walk around saying, "Well, we didn't allow the filibuster to evaporate, and at the same time, we enabled fair voting rights."
So Frank, you didn't vote.
No, I think that there will be a carve out.
Okay.
Now that I understand it, it sounds likely, but the only reason I think it is because it seems logical. And usually in politics, logical things don't happen.
Well, yeah, the reason I asked the question was because of what you said just previously, Keith, which was, none of this means anything unless they accomplish something,
Yeah.
and then run on that.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. The fact that people have these meetings with Manchin don't raise the word filibuster, but they come out of the meeting saying Manchin agrees this must happen. But nobody says how, but the fact that he agrees it must happen is a signal.
Okay, I want to thank our producer and director, Tina J. Gillmor. She's trying to turn off one of random device number 1230.
Thank you. Nice show, guys. I enjoyed it.
And I want to thank Brent Leary, who is
Off streaming something else.
streaming on the Brent Leary. What's the T stand for?
TV.
No,
TV. Brent Leary Television.
BLT.
BLT.
And, I want to thank Dennis Pombriant. Thank you, Dennis.
I wish I had a sandwich named for me.
I wish I had a BLT.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How about a hamburger today instead of?
Yeah, right. I'll give you a hamburger today.
Hey, it's Tuesday.
you do.
Okay, thanks to what's that guy's name? Oh yeah, Frank Radis.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, guys.
As did we. Thanks to Michael Markman
Thank you.
and Keith Tier.
Yeah. No big arguments this week.
Yeah, well,
What argument?
Not
There was
random.
no argument.
Hey, I gave you nukes. You didn't take it.
thanks
Learning,
to,
Dennis, I'm
This is
learning.
very civilized today, I must say.
yeah, almost like we were all given. What was that drug that we were given in high school to
Soma?
tamp down our urges?
Fluoride.
Soma? Was it thalidomide?
No,
I'm just kidding.
no.
Who
I
even
know.
remembers that?
We're all
I've got a 12 noon, so I've got to go.
okay.
See you,
Thanks
Keith.
to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye bye.
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 Hold on.